All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to explore a profoundly influential idea today, one that has literally shaped the course of human history. We're unpacking John F. Kilner's transformative text, Dignity and Destiny. Now you might be thinking, come on, a theological concept like the image of God, isn't that just an abstract philosophical idea meant for dusty textbooks? Well, actually no. As you're about to see, how we define this single, solitary concept directly impacts human survival, it drives our legal systems, and it completely shapes our approach to the most pressing modern bioethical challenges we face today. It's a real game changer.
So, before we tackle those complex human rights challenges, let's quickly look at our roadmap. Today we're covering 1. Liberation and devastation, 2. The danger of attributes, 3. Connection and reflection, 4. Equality and human dignity, 5. Modern human rights challenges, and 6. A better way forward.
Starting right off with Section 1, Liberation and Devastation.
We absolutely have to start with a massive historical paradox regarding this image of God. It's a contradiction that has puzzled scholars for centuries. Think about the sheer scale of this for a second. How in the world could the exact same concept, the belief that humanity is created in the image of God, inspire the most magnificent abolitionist and human rights campaigns in history, while simultaneously being twisted to justify horrific atrocities and oppression? How does one single idea carry the potential for such massive extremes?
Well, the root of this devastation actually starts with people ignoring some very old, very good advice. Early church figures, like the Desert Fathers, explicitly warned against this. They literally said, don't speculate about the image. But, human nature being what it is, centuries of scholars and leaders simply ignored the memo. And that widespread speculation, it opened the door to terrible devastation.
Which brings us to Section 2, the danger of attributes. Let's look at exactly how that speculation became a fatal flaw in human reasoning.
It's a trap, really, and it's incredibly easy to fall into. Step 1. People started defining the image of God as a checklist of human abilities, things like human reason, our ability to rule or manage creation, or our moral righteousness. Step 2. They observed that, obviously, these attributes vary wildly from person to person. Some people seem highly rational, right? While others have cognitive impairments. Some act righteously, others act terribly. Then comes Step 3. The dark conclusion. If the image is based on these variable attributes, then people who lack them must have less of the image, and therefore they deserve less protection and just have less inherent worth.
By setting aside the protective view that all humans equally possess this image, perpetrators were able to rationalize the absolute unthinkable. Defining human worth by a sliding scale of attributes paved the way for things like court-mandated sterilizations, harmful experimentation on vulnerable populations, the horrors of the slavery of Africans and their descendants, the utter devastation of the Nazi Holocaust, and the systemic mistreatment of Native Americans. When human dignity becomes conditional, the door to devastation is blown wide open.
So, moving on to Section 3, Connection and Reflection. If the attributes view is that dangerously flawed, we've got to pivot to the true corrected understanding of the concept. What did the biblical authors actually mean? In Dignity and Destiny, Kilner points out something fascinating, a textual observation that changes literally everything. Think about this. While human beings can be, and often are, deeply damaged by sin and suffering, the text never actually says the image of God itself can be damaged. The image remains entirely intact, regardless of a person's physical, mental, or moral state.
And that leads us to this bulletproof definition. The image of God is not about what a human being can do. It relies entirely on connection and reflection. It is an undamaged, special connection with the Creator and a destiny to ultimately reflect that Creator. Human dignity, therefore, is completely unshakable because it's rooted in this relationship and destiny, not some fluctuating scorecard of human abilities.
The contrast here is just staggering. The flawed attributes view assigns value based on what humans can presently do. It makes dignity a moving target. But the true connection and reflection view values humans based on who God is and the ultimate destiny intended for them. One creates a ruthless hierarchy of human value. The other levels the playing field entirely.
Section 4. Equality and human dignity. Let's explore how this true definition creates an immovable baseline for equality in our society.
There's this fantastic quote from disabilities ethicist Hans Reinders. In the loving eyes of God, there are no marginal cases of being human. Think about what that actually means in practice. Because the image is based on an undamaged connection rather than physical or mental capacity, every single person possesses infinite sacredness.
Whether someone is at the peak of physical health or living with profound disabilities, there is no such thing as a marginal human being. None.
Section 5. Modern Human Rights Challenges.
This is where the rubber really meets the road for us today. We've established the theory, but applying this unshakable framework to the front lines of modern human rights is where it gets incredibly real. Just look at the headlines: genetic intervention, end-of-life care, access to healthcare, stem cell research, abortion, and human experimentation. We live in an era of staggering scientific advancement, but our collective response to these massive bioethical challenges depends entirely on our foundational view of humanity. If we view humans through that flawed attributes lens, we might try to justify discarding the weak or experimenting on the vulnerable for the quote-unquote greater good. But if we view humanity as possessing an undamaged, sacred image, our ethical calculus changes completely.
Let's map out how this framework directly solves these challenges. Take marginalization and disability. The connection and reflection model actively fights it by recognizing equal sacredness, regardless of someone's physical or mental attributes. What about systemic injustice and oppression? Well, this framework doesn't just look at isolated individuals, it sees humanity corporately. It demands justice based on our shared inherent dignity, meaning oppressive systems are a direct violation of that shared image. And regarding harmful bioexperimentation, this view fiercely protects physical human life at all stages as inherently valuable simply because of its divine connection. It draws a hard line against using human beings merely as means to a scientific end.
Finally, Section 6, a better way forward.
So, what's the takeaway here? A proper, robust understanding of the image of God doesn't just tell us what not to do, it actively compels us to act. It's a call to action to champion the most vulnerable among us, the down and dejected, the needy and neglected, the ruined and rejected. It demands that we work to completely liberate them from oppressive systems and advocate for their absolute equality in every single sphere of life.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought from the text. Human rights aren't just temporary social contracts that we negotiated and could potentially just abandon tomorrow. They are, by the imago, anchored in the structure of the universe. Think about the weight of that. Human rights are absolute, unshakable truths woven into the very fabric of reality itself. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. I'll leave you with this question. If your dignity is an immovable structure of the universe, how will that change the way you treat the next person you disagree with?